We've all been taught from a young age that we should set big goals, we should dream big, and we should strive to achieve great things. And while that is partly true, and there's some truth in that, what if I told you there's an alternate universe in which you shouldn't set goals, in which you should actually surrender the outcome entirely of what you're trying to achieve and focus on the now, focus on the present, focus on the inputs, the actions, the day-to-day things that will lead you there. Now, this concept stems from a book called Chop Wood, Carry Water by Joshua Medcalf, which is a phenomenal book which talks about this idea of surrendering the outcome and focusing on the process, being process-oriented rather than goal or outcome-oriented. Now, there's a lot of other great things and takeaways from this book that you can go read yourself. It's a phenomenal read and give you a whole new perspective on life, but I really want to hone in on this idea of surrendering the outcome and basically not setting any goals. Why I think that for most people this would actually help you rather than make your life harder. And the way that I'll illustrate this and hopefully make this make sense to you and even myself is, imagine if you're going to war. Imagine if you today were going to war and you had a warrior beside you, okay? Let me ask you this. What kind of warrior would you want beside you? Would you want somebody who has already accepted death and said, you know what, I'm going to die. I am going to die in this war, so I have nothing to lose, and I'm going to lay my life on the line and try my absolute best? Or would you rather have somebody who's scared? He's like, oh, I don't want to die. I really want to live. I don't want to die. Like, I don't want to go to war. And who's really reserved and held back the entirety of the war. Who would you rather have fighting beside you? I know who I would rather want, because I can promise you this guy's going to hide behind you and let you take the bullet for him, whereas this guy's going to step in front of you. And so while this is a very small little metaphor, I hope it can show you this idea of when you surrender the outcome, it allows you to perform at your best. Because when you're not fixated on the end goal, you're able to focus on the now. And here's the cool thing. The only thing we can control is not what happened yesterday, not what happens tomorrow, but what happens today, what happens right now. That is the only thing you can control. And therefore, if you're constantly looking ahead, you will miss the now. And the now is the only thing you can control. And therefore, if you cannot control the now, you cannot even get to the outcome. It's the same way that alpinists or rock climbers, if they're constantly looking at the very, very, very tippity top of the mountain, they're going to miss a step or miss a rock, and they're going to slip, fall, and die. If they're constantly only looking up at the top of where they want to go, they're not going to be present and focused on what's happening now. Where do I need to put my foot next? Where is this next hole? Where is this? Where is that? If they're always looking up to where they want to go, they're going to fall. They're going to fail. They're going to die. It's the same way if you're driving. Imagine if you're going from point A to point B, and point B we'll just say is the mall, and point A is your house. If you're trying to, and imagine it's like a big squiggly road. If you're trying to like look over the trees and over top of all the buildings and past all the cars of like where you're going, eventually you're going to crash because you're not going to see what's going on in front of you. And it's the same in life when you're constantly head over heels only in love with the outcome. You forget to focus on the now. You forget to focus on the things you actually can control, which is the present moment, which is your actions and your inputs that you do today. You see, when you surrender the outcome, you allow yourself to be at your best because you focus on what truly matters and the only thing you can control, which is the now. And when you have no regard for the outcome, when you surrender the idea of the outcome, you allow yourself to perform at your absolute best. It's the same with even being happy. Right? A lot of people are like, oh, once I get this, I'll be happy. Once I get that, I'll be happy. And then they get this thing and they're not happy. And so imagine if you surrender the idea of happiness being at the top of this mountain. You say, I'm just going to be happy all the time. Screw happiness in and of itself as this idea I'm going to achieve. I'm just going to constantly, perpetually be happy forever. Well, you would then continue to be happy every single day. Because you've surrendered the idea that this happiness has to be this one eureka moment that just happens out of nowhere, which isn't true. Now, I'm not saying that goals are entirely bad. As a matter of fact, I'm a huge advocate for setting goals. But once again, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your training or your systems. You see, this idea that we shine under the bright lights is very it's a very false belief. That paradigm, that idea of, oh, shining under the bright lights is false in and of itself. Because you do not shine under the bright lights. You don't just magically start to shine and radiate energy once the bright lights shine. No, no, no. The bright lights only reveal the work that was done in the dark. I'll say it again. The bright lights, you don't shine on the bright lights. The bright lights only show and reveal the work that's being done in the dark. Quite literally, that's how it's worked. Is you work in the dark, in the dark, in the dark, in the dark, in the dark. Eventually, somebody turns the lights on, and then they see what you're working on. And if you've been working relentlessly, perpetually every single day, when they turn the lights on, you'll have a lot to show for it. If you haven't worked every single day, you will not have a lot to show for it, and you will not rise to the occasion. Because once again, you don't just magically rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. Which is why, knowing this, our focus shouldn't be on, oh, what is our goal? Because here's the thing. At the beginning of a 100-meter dash, everybody has the same objective. I want to win the race. And the guy that wants to win the race isn't the guy that has the biggest desire for winning the race, because they all have the big desire. The guy who wins the race is the guy that put in the most work. It's not the guy who wanted it bad. It's not the guy who said he wanted it bad enough. It's the guy who put in the most work. It's as simple as that. And more often than that, it's the guy who surrendered the outcome and said, I don't care about the outcome. I'm going to put in the work day in and day out to be the absolute best version that I could be. And unequivocally, when you do that, you end up be performing and becoming your best self, because you're so focused on the process rather than the outcome. I hope I'm making a bit of sense here, but this is such an important topic of surrendering the outcome. I still struggle with this too, with making money, right? Always, I want to make more, I want to make more, I want to make more. And we're constantly fixated on, I want to make more money so I can do this, for whatever reason that may be. Maybe it's because you think it'll make you happy, maybe it's because of freedom, maybe it's because of some egotistical thing. It doesn't matter, but we say, I want to make more money. And we're so fixated constantly on making money, that we forget to focus on the now. You see, a lot of people, something that took me a really long time to understand, I still have a hard time dealing with, is this idea that making money will make you happy. And now that in and of itself, like, there's a lot of truth to that. Like, I've never met somebody who their life got worse after working on themselves and making more money. Okay? But there's this idea that people are like, oh, I will only be happy once I make money. And what happens is, when you start to make money, you realize that you don't just magically get injected with a happiness pill once you make money. You're just as sad as you were before, maybe a little less sad. But the point I'm trying to get at is that most people say, oh, once I make this money, I'll buy this Lambo, then I'll be happy. But that's not true, because material possessions do not fundamentally make you happy. We can talk about why and the biological things that go in your brain, etc., but it won't. And once you do that, you will realize it doesn't. What you realize will make you happy is not getting the Lamborghini, it's the process of getting the Lamborghini. It's the same with climbing a mountain. A lot of people want to climb Mount Everest, but why? If you've ever looked at Mount Everest, you'll know the view 99% of the time isn't that good. It's very cloudy. You can't actually see anything. There's really no view, to be honest, at all. Sure, you're high up, but nobody can see anything. The view in and of itself isn't good. So what makes being on Mount Everest so cool? Like, imagine if I just got a helicopter and flew you to Mount Everest and dropped you off at the top. Would you feel good? Would you feel accomplished? Would you feel happy about climbing that mountain? Well, no, because the prize, the happiness, the fulfillment from climbing Mount Everest isn't in getting to the top. It's into all the preparation, the blood, sweat, and tears, the early mornings, the late nights, right? All the training you put in, climbing that mountain day in and day out in the freezing cold. That's what makes getting to the top so worth it. Not the fact that you actually got to the top. You see, the prize isn't getting to the top. It's everything that we became to getting to that point. There's a really good quote from Jim Rohn, which is, set a goal to make $1 million for what it will make of you to achieve it. You see, making $1 million isn't about making $1 million. That's not the goal. It's just not. It can be, but you realize that the whole purpose of making $1 million shouldn't be so you can have $1 million. It's so you can see what kind of person you can become and how you can grow and develop yourself into the person that is capable of making $1 million, to make yourself a $1 million person. There's probably a lot more stuff I could say, but I want to keep this relatively short so you can digest it and apply it. Okay, learning is defined as a change in action after exposure to new information. So if you do not change, you did not learn from this video. So my objective is to keep this video short so you can actually learn something, aka change your actions and live a better life. So I hope this idea of surrendering the outcome and being process oriented will help you out. If you want to get a better insight onto this, I recommend you go read the book Chop Wood, Carry Water by Joshua Metcalf. He explains this concept a lot more thoroughly throughout the entire course of the books. I recommend you go give that a read. Otherwise, surrender the outcome so you can perform at your best. You can focus on the now, which is the only thing that you can control.